everyone, so in today's video we're going to be doing a quick review of the new Fenty Slip Shine Sheer Shiny lipsticks, and let's hope that's the last time I have to say that because that took me a few tries. I want to quickly note, no, this is not like going to be my typical lighting setup. I am kind of playing around with doing some studio lit videos on my channel. This is definitely not the finished product, believe me. I am my biggest critic. But in today's video, I'm going to be basically giving you an all-encompassing review of these new lipsticks. This is not the first time that a brand has released a shiny, lightly pigmented lipstick. So not only am I going to give you swatches of all 4 colors that I bought and give you a full in-depth review of the formula, I'm also going to compare these to 3 other different formulas that I immediately thought of when I thought of sheer, creamy, and effortless lipsticks. So I hope that those comparisons later in the video are also super helpful. And as a whole, I hope that you guys find the entire video helpful. So definitely make sure to give the video a thumbs up if you do enjoy it. Make sure you subscribe too. So the Fenty Slip Shine Sheer Shiny lipsticks come in 10 different shades. As I mentioned before, I bought 4 different shades. They retail for $22 and you get 0.098 ounces of product. So that's actually not much product. Typically, I like to hit 0.12 ounces, 0.15 ounces. So I do wish that Fenty had included more product. The Fenty Gloss Bombs, I believe, are either $18 or $19 and you do get more product within that line. I'm not sure if this formula was more expensive to make. Let's quickly swatch out the 4 shades that I have. I have what I'm wearing on my lips today, which is Retro Rose. It's a very basic dusty rose shade, but I absolutely love these shades. I find them to be very flattering. There's also Goji Gang, which is more of a mauvey rose, definitely slightly more on the cooler tone side. I also find it to be a very flattering shade. I also bought Cookies and Cocoa, which they describe as like a brown berry shade. Certainly a unique color. I'm a really big fan of this color, as well as Tang, which is a red orange, very classic red orange. Before we jump into the formula, I did want to quickly mention the packaging. A very classic lipstick tube. It has the metal bullet, and as a whole, I think the outside is really pretty. I was though expecting it to not feel as plasticky. It does feel a little bit cheap, and I was also expecting these because it does have the more geometric packaging. I was expecting these to magnetize the way that the matchsticks do. Not that it really matters, but I do like that touch with the matchsticks. That way they're really prettily organized. So jumping into the formula of this product, Fenty describes it as an ultra comforting lipstick with just the perfect amount of shine as well as color. They say it's nourishing and there's no mirror needed. So it's a really easy, effortless, shiny lipstick product. Texture of this product is quite like a regular balm. There's a nice slip to it. There's that slight balminess, but it's not an ultra heavy lipstick product. With some more creamy, shiny lipstick products, they kind of feel like a lipstick on the lips. This one definitely is slightly on the lightweight side, but there is enough heft to it to actually give the lips some pigment. And I have to say that I'm actually really surprised by this formula and the way that these lipsticks apply and the way they look on the lips for a few different reasons. Quite honestly, I wasn't necessarily expecting this formula to be the way it is. The colors and the way that the pigment was formulated, I actually think is quite different. And that definitely affects application as well. So for example, the shade that I'm wearing on my lips today is Retro Rose. And I find that this has a very even pigment. It has a sheerness to it. It has a slight translucence. It's super in line with a classic balmy lipstick. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think this shade is definitely more of what I was expecting. But between the shades, you will get something a little bit different. Because for example, when you apply Cookies and Cocoa, there is something a little bit different to it. This actually has quite a bit of shimmer throughout, and it's not necessarily glitter. I say shimmer in the sense of an incredibly fine shimmer, and hopefully you'll be able to see that sort of finish that I'm talking about when I apply it on the lips. There is definitely a gold shimmer throughout the product that personally I actually find kind of defines the lips and reflects back some color. It'll reflect back a little bit of gold, but it won't necessarily read as a glitter. It almost just kind of defines the lips and adds a nuance to the color. And already I find that Cookies and Cocoa is a unique color. I think it can be difficult, and brands I feel like kind of steer away from more cool toned lip products, but I think this one was done really well, and I think that the shimmer throughout makes it a pretty unique color. Moving on to something like Goji Gang, there is a very slight amount of shimmer. I would say a lot less than the shade Cookies and Cocoa. I find this formula to be more in line with Retro Rose. And by the way, Cookies and Cocoa, I actually did find that one to be a little bit creamier in a way that did make it a little bit more difficult to apply. But this shade, again, feels like a very traditional, lesser pigmented sheer and shiny lip product. Very flattering. It definitely defines the lips in a pretty way. This isn't a lipstick across the board throughout all of the shades that we're talking about that is going to fill in the lines of the lips. It will give a subtle and healthy shine to the lips. With Tang Thang, I do notice a little bit more shimmer throughout this one, but because the color is so vibrant and there's a really beautiful shine to it, I also don't really mind the shimmer throughout. And I should mention, I don't like shimmer in my lip products. I am super particular. And I find that with a color like this, because the color already really brightens up the face, really brings a beautiful vibrancy to every look. I find that this is like a really perfect everyday sort of summer color. I think it just adds that little bit of extra glimmer. These also wear pretty easily. Now, if you're going with something like Tang Thang, maybe you would think about using a lip liner. For me personally, I would rather just not. I think that there is a beauty though about these being sort of an effortless lip product. I don't find myself worrying about how they look on the lips, how they're wearing. They're going to wear like a very traditional lip balm would. Another thing that's not my absolute favorite about these lipsticks is that the bullet itself, the opening to the product, is quite big. As a whole, I think it's a little bit too wide and it's a little bit too tall. If you like an incredibly crisp lip look, even with a more effortless lip product, I personally don't think that this is necessarily a no mirror lip product. I do wish that it was a little bit easier and more effortless to apply. Is it a pain in the ass? No. Is it completely effortless? I don't think so. So let's start to compare this formula to a couple of other formulas this has reminded me of. First up, and this one actually might be a shock to you guys, these actually remind me quite a bit of the Kosas Wet Lip Oils. I know this is pretty much a completely different formula advertised than the formula that we just talked about, but the way that this translates on the lips is incredibly similar. If you're familiar with the Kosas Wet Lip Oils, at least the shade Dip also has that subtle shimmer throughout. It's just that shift that adds a little bit of extra dimension to the lip color. The formula itself is a little bit thinner and it's definitely more of like a lip gloss lip oil formula, but both of these formulas do have castor oil pretty high up on the ingredient list. So I feel like the slip and the feeling at the end of the day of both of these, I personally find to be very similar. The Kosas Wet Lip Oil is more expensive than the Fenty, but you do get more product with this. You get 0.15 ounces. But one thing that I think that the Kosas does better than the Fenty is just the packaging as a whole. I think the Kosas packaging was more thought out than the Fenty. First of all, I think like aesthetically it's really pretty, but the applicator is thinner and you can be a little bit more precise with it. So if you prefer a precise looking lip color, then I would go with this over the Fenty. But as a whole, I find these two products to actually be very similar once they're applied to the lips. The formulas might not be exactly the same. The color selection is definitely not the same, but I feel like these are definitely in the same family. But I also started to think, what are some affordable sheer and shiny lipsticks that the Fenty might be similar to? And I immediately thought of one that I was a fan of for a very long time, which is the L'Oreal Color Riche Shine lipsticks. I personally have mine in the shade 904 Varnished Rosewood, and this basically gives you all of the same claims that the one from Fenty does. But I actually forgot how pigmented some of these shades are. At least this this shade I find to be way more of a true medium pigmentation shiny lipstick. This to me has a pretty different formula than the Fenty Sheer Shiny lipsticks. This is going to give you way more color payoff. There's no shimmer throughout it. But if you're just looking for an easy lip product to give you quite a bit of pigment, I would maybe look into these from L'Oreal. But as a whole, I think the formula is actually quite different. But these super lustrous glass shine lipsticks from Revlon, I do find to be a little bit closer to the ones from Fenty. So I have mine in the shade 020, and this formula I think is the closest to something like the Goji Gang shade and the Retro Rose shade from Fenty. It has a really even and sheer pigment, and I find that this actually applies way more easily than the ones from Fenty. And I also do find that somehow the packaging feels less cheap than the one from Fenty. It still has the metal tube at the top, but I do think that this applicator is a little bit more circular, and I just find as a whole this to be way more of a no mirror makeup product than the lipsticks from Fenty. But if you like that sort of multi-dimensional sheer pigment look with that shimmer throughout, this isn't necessarily going to give it to you. I think if you just want like a sheer and pretty lip product without any shimmer, you just want some nice color to the lips, I think that this is a really good option. It's cheaper and you get way more product, but this isn't going to give you as much definition as the lip products from Fenty. The Fenty does have a more multi-dimensional look once they're applied to the lips. But on the plus side, if you do have quite a bit of lip lines, you'll probably like the way that this looks on your lips a little bit better. So as a whole, I think Fenty really hit it out of the park with their shade selection. That is definitely a theme with a lot of my Fenty videos, that I really appreciate their attention to detail with their shade ranges. Create unique shades, they create some shades that I think other brands are afraid to create. And I think that they actually did something really different with this formula, and I was expecting it to be a little bit more what you see is what you get. I find these to give a lot more definition to the lips than I was expecting. Definitely gives a different sort of shine. It's not just a true balmy shine. I think if there's a shade that really catches your attention, I would definitely go for it, because again, I think that that is what Fenty does really well, is creating those really unique shades. But listen, if you are looking for a really easy everyday lip product, something that's very no fuss, very straight to the point, looking at some of those other lip products is also an option. So I hope that you guys found today's video super helpful. Again, this lighting is not going to stay like this forever. I just wanted to try this out for today's video. If you guys found value to this video, if you found it helpful, please make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and I would love for you guys to subscribe. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one.